Hey guys, I'm out here in the houseboat, and as you can tell, a bunch of white stuff's falling all over the ground here. We're still in Texas, but it doesn't feel like it the past couple days. So houseboat work is going kind of slow right now because of the weather. But if you go back to Rogue Wave episode 9, you know we started the budget boat build. So we've got a $500 boat. The engine ended up being locked up, so we had to spend $1,200 to get a new engine off Craigslist. And today I'm going to start working on the floor. So we're going to try to see what it's going to cost in wood and fiberglass to get a floor in the boat. So let's get going. Putting a trailer hitch on the lawnmower is the best thing I ever did. It's easy to move stuff around the yard. Man, this thing had a bunch of water in it for sitting out for just a couple days. That's nice. Oh, I broke it. Oh, it's sharp too. Oh. Now it's time to get a floor put into this boat. So that means fiberglass time. So I've got to get in here, finish cleaning the floor up, and then we're going to grind some of the fiberglass away to get a good base for our stringers to go mount down into. And then we're going to have to see how much we're going to have to spend on wood. So you know wood prices are through the roof right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how much we're going to have to spend to get a floor in the boat. You can see in here at the boat, looks like it snowed. So grinded a lot of old fiberglass out of the bottom of this thing. This is the worst part. There's just no way around it. Fiberglass work sucks. All right guys, so we've got a lot of the floor grinded down. It's pretty much ready for the stringers to get built and put in. I got a couple tips for you if you're gonna have to do a lot of fiberglass work like this. One is to get a variable speed polisher, and that's the nice thing, you can turn it down so it doesn't run so fast. And then for heavy fiberglass work, these diamond cup wheels for grinding concrete work really good. So you can see kind of what the surface looks like there. For this woven roving that we're trying to knock down, see it's really textured and it knocks it down quick. So that's perfect for that. Kind of the next step after that is a cheap backing pad and 24 grit discs. So this is like almost rocks glued to paper. It's really rough. That's good for doing stuff up on the walls, kind of some finish sanding for some of the stuff in here. It doesn't take as much off as the diamond wheel. And then to finish, you want to shoot for about 80 grit sandpaper. So that's where the normal orbital sander works great. I got a Bosch here because I do a lot of sanding and my hands go numb. This is actually, I don't know if you can see that, it's decoupled. So the sanding part on the bottom is decoupled from the top part that you hold with your hands. So your hands don't go numb after you're sanding for a few hours. So I really like that. Here's my final tip when you're doing this kind of miserable sanding of fiberglass. You got to use your imagination. So picture what the boat is going to be like, you know, whatever color you think you're going to paint it. Close your eyes for a minute, try to imagine it, otherwise you're going to go insane. Luckily, this was my first boat, so from 10 years ago, I've got video and some pictures I can look back at. The one with the blue rope on it? And that kind of helps get you along because your friends aren't going to want to help when you're doing this part of the job. It's probably just going to be you. So to not go crazy, take a break every once in a while and just imagine what the boat's going to be like when it's done. All right, next we've got to go get the wood. So remember, we're $500 in for the boat, $1,200 for the engine. We're going to go see how much the wood is going to cost now. Uh-oh, got a low tire, 50 PSI. It's all right. Before y'all say anything, yes, I know I'm at a big box store, the Home Depot. When we do the houseboat, the Enigma restoration, and we get to the floor and the stringers, it's gonna take a couple $1,000s worth of wood. I'm gonna try to use a local lumber yard, give a local business some of our money. But for a small project like this little budget boat, it's easy just to come over to Home Depot and grab some plywood because those lumber yards, they're not open on the weekend, and it's the weekend, so what are you gonna do? Nice. All right, we got the wood. Hey, you need some help, but you're gonna hold the last one after. All right, so let's talk about plywood that we got. So here, I've got 5 sheets of the floor material. Here, I've got 3 sheets for the stringer material. Okay, so the absolute best plywood to use for a boat is marine grade plywood. So for example, this 3/4 inch plywood that we got from Home Depot, it was $62. It is a 5-layer laminate. Marine grade plywood in 3/4 inch, it would be like 7 layers. Okay, there's less knots and gaps in the wood, like you see here, but it's $140 a sheet. Okay, so this is $62 versus $140. Now, is marine grade plywood over twice as strong? I don't think so, and plenty of people build boats with good old exterior graded plywood. Like here's a good example from the side here. So with marine grade plywood, you're not going to have gaps here where the layers are kind of collapsing in on each other. It is nearly perfect. You'll have 7 perfect layers, no gaps anywhere in the middle. You know, this is what you get with exterior grade plywood. You're going to have some irregularities like this, but for the most part, most of it will be pretty good. So if you want to do it 100% right, you would get marine grade plywood. If you're cheap, and with the way wood prices are, you want to save over half the cost, exterior grade plywood work just fine. All right, guys, I want to talk about the stringer layup schedule that we're going to use for the budget boat. Stringer layup schedule is just a fancy way of saying how many layers of fiberglass are we going to use, what's it going to look like. If you imagine this line is the bottom of the boat, so this is the hull, and it's not perfectly smooth, even though we've sanded it down. This represents our stringers. It's going to be 2 layers of that 3/4 inch plywood bonded together. The idea is you want to bed your stringers to the bottom of the boat in a thickened epoxy. So we're going to do that. That fills in all the gaps and glues this stringer to the bottom of the boat. We're going to use that same thickened epoxy to build some 1/2 inch fillets on each side of the stringer. So that lets the fiberglass roll across this contour easier than if it was just a 90-degree bend. We're going to use the router and grind a fillet on the top of the stringers on both sides. We're going to try a 1/2 inch and then also a 3/8 inch radius. It'll help the fiberglass wrap around this contour easier than if it was just a 90-degree bend. The fiberglass that we're going to use is called 1708. So this fabric, when you unroll it, you can see the fiberglass strands are run diagonal to each other. And this is a really strong fiberglass that works well with epoxy. They also make an 1808 fabric. When you unroll that, you can see the fiberglass strands are run at the 0 and 90-degree angles to each other. For the houseboat where we need a lot of extra strength, we're going to use a combination of these 2 fabrics. But for this budget boat build, the 1708 fabric is going to work just fine. And we're going to do 3 layers of this 1708 fiberglass, one on top of another. We're going to do the largest piece first, and then the shorter pieces on top of that. And the idea is your final piece should be the shortest piece, and it should end about 2 1/4 inches away from the edge of the stringer. Each layer should end a 1/2 inch from the previous layer, and the reason for that is to spread the stress load across the bottom of the hull. If you ended all the pieces of fiberglass at the same spot, you've got a high stress area that could possibly crack over time. And if we do this right, it should end up at about 1/8 of an inch thick, which is what the original fiberglass was, but because we're using epoxy, this is going to be way stronger than it ever was from the factory. Okay, so I've got this kind of mock-up of a stringer built out. This would represent the bottom of the boat. Here's the stringer, obviously. So I bedded it in some thickened epoxy. All right, and I made the fillets on the side. These are 1/2 inch radius fillets. For the top, I'm gonna try 2 different radiuses. So I got the router out, as you saw. I did a 3/8 inch radius on this half, and I did a 1/2 inch radius fillet on this half. So I'm gonna see if a 3/8 is enough radius to wrap that fabric around. It's pretty thick fabric. So some people say they have trouble unless you go to a 1/2 inch radius. All right, guys, it's the next morning. This is cured, so let's check it out. It looks pretty good. The 1/2 inch radius here, obviously the fabric wrapped around that pretty easy, but it also wrapped pretty easy around the 3/8 inch, and it cured just fine. So in the boat, I think I'm gonna go with the smaller 3/8 inch radius. Like I said, that way we've got more flat area on top. The 3 layers worked out pretty good. It's hard to tell, but like we talked about, one layer ends here, then the next a 1/2 inch away, and the last another 1/2 inch away. So it spreads the load out on the hull. And this is just strong as can be. I kind of want to set it outside and drive the truck over it and see if it breaks. All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So as far as the budget goes, let's look at that real quick. You know, we're $500 in for the boat, $1,200 for the engine. We got $493 for the wood, and $173 and all the miscellaneous stuff, the tape, drop cloths, mixing buckets, things like that. So $2366. So the budget, it's already getting up there. We'll see where we end up. On the next video, we'll start getting the stringers in, kind of show you some of that. and then we'll get back on the houseboat as soon as it's not 25 degrees in Texas. So we'll see y'all next time.